What is up? This is Coach Graham, the Barefoot Sprinter, and today we're continuing on our injury series. So we're building off of day 0, which is what you do on the day you get injured as a psychological, emotional, mental aspect of dealing with the trauma of an acute injury. So if you haven't seen that, you should go watch that video. And we'll talk about screens and x-rays and stuff like that in another video because that's a more nuanced discussion. Today we're going to focus on what to do in the first few days after getting injured. Now, this is a phase where you don't have full capacity to your joint, your range of motion, you're still swelling, you're still injured, you're still dealing with the ickiness of the post-acute injury phase. And this could be a single day for some people. It could be 3 days if it's a mild injury, 7 days if it's a serious injury, or 2 weeks or longer. But it's just, how do you deal with that? What do you think about as a plan? Because you realize that when most people get hurt, the thing that they most need is reassurance. They need some type of plan that takes the anxiety away, something to work towards, something to learn, something to occupy their mind. Because all of a sudden, you had this whole life, this whole plan, this whole set of I can move, I can do all this stuff. And then you got hurt, and now you can't do any of that stuff. So what fills the gap is either going to be numbing, which is a lot of drugs and alcohol and video games or whatever, lounging around and kind of quitting on a lot of things, or anxiety. And you sit there and you kind of worry, you fixate, and you massage, and you palpate and do all this stuff, and you end up irritating. You pick the scab too many times. So the middle ground is to be actively engaged in a rehabilitative process while also understanding that rest is required. What does that look like? First step is to learn the anatomy. Now, every injury is a gift to learn your body. As humans, we don't see things. We don't see objects. We see purposes. So, for example, I don't see a phone. I see something that calls people, because the second you can no longer call people, it's not a phone. I don't know what it is. I don't see a car. I see a thing that takes me places. And so if the wheel's broken, it's like, well, the thing's broken. And so with our body, when we're healthy as kids, we come out and we think, I'm a thing that plays. I'm a thing that rolls and throws and runs. And we get injured and we can't do that thing. So now we're left in this land of confusion. We're thrown into this kind of chaos of I don't know what to do, because the thing that we just took for granted now doesn't work. And so we have to fix it. And so the way we start to do that is we begin to take further levels of introspection into the details of our body. This is your chance to learn the tissues of your body, your bones, your muscles, your organs, your skin. That's the stuff that makes up you. And so you go and you study the anatomy as a way to understand what's going on. Now, this is an important part. You want to study the anatomy and pair that with your lived experience and say, okay, when I flex this muscle, it pulls your arm across. Okay, this must be my pec. This is my shoulder. Just a very basic understanding of the big muscles and the big bones in your body, and start to pair that with the fact that, okay, my joint should be able to do this on one side, but it can't do this. And so that's what's going to set up your movement plan. Because before you jump into any bigger strength and rehabilitation program that has exercises, you have basic movement, which is just like learning the words that make up sentences. You have to learn how to say the words before you can really put them into sentences. And that's part of the movement process, is learning the language of your body. One thing to really keep in mind is that when you go on to learn the anatomy, go on to learn the anatomy. Don't go on to play WebMD and diagnose yourself. Because you're going to see a bunch of pictures, you're going to see a bunch of stuff, and you don't have the feedback or the expertise to say, that's this. And worst case scenario, you're going to walk in and come out with, I've got this specific thing that's this great of an injury and it's going to take this long to recover. You don't know. And it's going to create a certain expectation in your brain that's going to keep you away from the process of just saying, one day at a time, continue to work and improve that. And the important part is that perspective lets you move to part 2 or part 3, which is set small wins for yourself. You have to think, instead of thinking, you have to change the way you compare your capacity. Before, let's say a few days ago, you could go and bench 135 for 20 reps. Now you can't even move your arm. You're gonna have to reset the game and set small wins and say, yesterday I couldn't move my arm, today I can get there. Small win. So that way you start to think, okay, I'm progressing. One of the things people lose in the rehabilitation process is the idea of percentage improvements daily. If I tell you that you're gonna improve 1% every day, what does it feel like between 6% and 7%? You're not going to know the difference. But if you can set small wins and say, I went a little bit better every day, you can then have confidence to say that I'm on the right path. I'm trending upwards. Because some days it's going to be 20% improvement, some days it's going to be 2%. But as long as you're moving in the right direction and not regressing, that's the important part. So set small wins, reset your overall expectations on what your body should be able to do, and build up from there. Because if you feel like you're progressing, that's when you start to get wins every single day. And it reminds you that you might not be able to brush your teeth today, but you'll be able to brush your teeth tomorrow. And those are the small things, because functionally you start to get things in your life back. And that also lets you really not take for granted all the small things in your life that you were taking for granted, like being able to eat with both hands, or type, or do whatever it is, or let's say walk if you have an ankle sprain and be able to jump. Those things you really appreciate after you get it back, which is part of the gift of injury. Which brings us to part 4 of circulation. And so this is Circulation is the language of your body. So there's local circulation, which is around the injury. So that's going to be the swelling, the joint that's irritated. Then there's global circulation. What you realize is that if we think about the analogy of a sponge, so let's say right now my shoulder is swollen, and you can see the swelling is protected around the joint. This is like a sponge. If I put a bunch of water on a sponge, it's going to stay there. But I have to create a physical stress to squeeze the water out and refresh it. So in the same way here, if I just let my shoulder sit there for days or weeks because I just decide to numb out the pain and just take painkillers and just rest and put ice on it, which is going to limit the circulation, I'm not going to move it, I just sit here and then give up on life, that water is getting really stale. But if I can find spaces to continue to move and load that, and then find different areas to use, whether you have a super friend that's going to raise and move your arm around, whether you can just start to get that, lay on your back and get different areas, different angles. I can start to squeeze. Remember that the muscles I have below the joint or above the joint, they still need attention. Those are going to get a circulatory flow, which then gets new metabolites into the area, gets the old stuff out, and starts to continue this thing is healthy. This is where massage is also helpful as well. So even if I can't move this as much, I can start to use my other hand or any, like a massage ball, to palpate and feel where things are swollen. You don't have to be a massage therapist expert to just feel like, oh, it feels a little tender and sore. Because what you'll notice is that, for example, in this trap right here, this is elevated and it looks swollen, but it's also working hard to stay tense to keep the joint stable. So the muscles around the joint are working to keep it tense. So you can find things like rest the arm, which we'll come back to. You can rest a limb that the muscles are supporting and massage that. And then you'll feel that tenderness of the muscle around it, both from an acute trauma perspective, but also from the fact that it's been holding a contraction for hours and weeks. So just feel that. This is part of the local circulation, and just getting blood flow in and out and reminding the muscles that, hey, you're doing a great job, we're here, but you don't have to continue to work all the time. And those things, turning the muscles on, those are what keep a acute problem from turning into a chronic dysfunction. Because, for example, if you have a shoulder dislocation or a neck injury, it's going to create a painful response that turns the muscle off, meaning I touch it and my muscle doesn't want to go because it causes a painful stimulation. So the muscle stops working. It slowly gets weaker. It gets atrophy. And then weeks from now, months from now, you've lost the strength of the muscles that would have supported the joint, and then the joint continues to get injured. This is my issue with shoulder dislocations that happen over and over again. Is I had an initial problem, I did all the rehabilitation stuff, the basic physical therapy things, never really actually approached the big muscles around it with any type of meaningful capacity. The joint got weak, kept getting injured. So you have to think about this local circulation as a process of getting the muscle, getting things engaged, getting the joint to move, reminding the body that, hey, there's things around that are creating a snowballing thing, a snowballing problem. That pairs with global circulation, which is the process of getting your heart moving, getting every other part of your body engaged. Yes, my shoulder might be injured, but my legs still work, my other arm is fine, my core is engaged, my heart still needs to get everything moving. And so if you sit down and don't do anything, all the muscle, all the blood that pools down in your legs isn't getting pumped back up because your calves aren't working. The second pump is kind of pushing blood back up to your heart. Your other body's getting stiff, and it's taking this one piece of stiffness, which is like if I took a shirt you're holding and squeeze it together, and that's now spreading the entire body. So remember, circulation is important both at the injury spot and at the rest of your body. So keep moving and get your body engaged. Stay alive, stay active, because that's going to give you this reminder that, hey, I've got stuff to do and I can't just sit around and be done. Now, that's important because it goes to the last piece, which is rest. You have to also understand that the tissue is healing. There will be a time, it may be 1 day, maybe 7 days, maybe 14 days, and there will be a graded period. It's not going to be the same amount of rest every day, but there'll be a period where you've lost a portion of your capacity to actually move. And in that, you need to allow the tissue time to heal, for the glue to settle, for the sealant to just, to set. That's hugely important. So just the valuable principle there is to understand that when you're resting, rest. Be 100% relaxed. Don't have to support any tension. Don't be 40% on and 60% off. That's the middle. You need to be on or off. That's the rehabilitation, the training and movement, or just completely resting. Those two are going to take care of everything. And if you want help and specific guidance on how to continue your progression for your pain, your injury, no matter where it's at, I have free programs for you. It'll be in the description below or some link that'll pop up around here. You can do this, but you have got to remember that you are more than this specific injury. You're more than this pain, and you will recover. You will look back and think, that was the thing I went through, but I'm stronger for it. That is the true process of becoming unbreakable. It's not that you never get broken. It's not that you never get hurt. It's not that you never get injured. It's that when you do, you know you are more than that. You know you have the skills, the ability, and the knowledge to be able to overcome it, and you do. And that way, everything that happens to you makes you stronger, and you continue to grow and become more from it. If you like this, make sure you subscribe, comment below with anything you thought I missed, anything you thought I nailed. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.